people cooperation is being enhanced beyond the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and over the course of the next 1 hour, we shall discuss threadbare with perhaps the finest panel of experts joining me on this broadcast in India and from the United States of America to see how India and the world view this meeting. But first, as always, this ground report my team and I filed from Tianjin.
The dragon and the elephant must come together. That was the message from Chinese President Xi Jinping to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a high-stakes bilateral on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin. Xi recalled last year's Kazan meeting as the turning point, the reset moment for China-India ties. Now, with diplomacy gaining ground, he urged both nations, two ancient civilizations, two population giants, two pillars of the global south, to rise above rivalry and embrace partnership. Xi called for strategic vision, not short-term suspicion, mutual trust, not threats. And yes, a dancing of the dragon and the elephant as the right path forward.
It is a great pleasure to meet you again, Mr. Prime Minister. I welcome you to China for the SCO summit. Last year, we had a successful meeting in Kazan. The world is going towards transformation. China and India are two of the most civilizational countries. We are the world's two most populous countries and part of the global south. It is vital to be friends, a good neighbor, and the dragon and the elephant to come together.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed that India-China ties are back on a positive track. He pointed to concrete signs, a peaceful border, resumption of direct flights and Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and a renewed commitment to cooperation. Prime Minister Modi stressed that India and China are not adversaries but partners in progress.
सीमा पर डिसएग्रीमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की।
Even Chinese media is calling this meeting a potential breakthrough, a turning point in India-China ties.
हम बहुत खुशी से ये देख रहे हैं जिन भारत हम दोनों दो पड़ोसी देश है ना, हम तो इस दुनिया के सबसे बड़े विकासशील देश भी है और इस दुनिया के तो उभरती अर्थव्यवस्थाएं भी है। तो अगर हम दोनों एक साथ हाथ मिलकर काम करते हैं तो जरूर बहुत सबसे मजबूती शक्ति होगी।
As the world watches a shifting global order, both leaders agreed this relationship must be driven by long-term purpose, not border headlines. Could Tianjin be the breakthrough?
There is gradual incremental progress in the relationship, but it can move forward only and only if and when there is peace and tranquility that's maintained along the line of actual control. Will it mean restoration of status quo ante before the Galwan operations is something that we need to keep an eye on. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China for India Today. So let's try and make sense of the developments that have taken place today, the SCO summit that will take place tomorrow, and of course, the bilateral with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Joining me on this India Today special broadcast is Dr. Tara Kartha, former director at the National Security Council Secretariat. With me is Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, former army commander, someone who keeps a hawk eye on all developments along the line of actual control and the bigger picture when it comes to India, China and the region. Professor Shrikant Kondapalli is Professor of China Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, just back from China. And joining us from the United States of America is Alexander Slater, Managing Director at the Capstone Corporate Practice and a geopolitical expert on national securities, joining us on this broadcast. And Alexander Slater, let me begin by asking you, what's the view in the West of the India-China bilateral and, of course, the India-Russia bilateral that will take place tomorrow here in Tianjin?
Gaurav, thanks so much for having me on. It's great to be with you and the other panelists here today. I thought your piece there ended very wisely, where you said that all of the gains that are ostensibly being made here in Tianjin between China and India depend on peace on the border. And as we've seen, that has been very hard to achieve recently. And depending on how you obviously measure peace, whether it's in 2020 or in 2023, issuing new maps, or even up until 2025, China's continuing issuance of new names on Arunachal Pradesh to kind of rename them in Chinese characters. I think this remains the deep view in the United States of what's going on here, that no matter the efforts on both sides to show a reconciliation, something that I would add predates the recent tension between India and the United States over trade and Russian oil.
Yes.
The long-term interests of the two countries just don't align. You have an armistice line from 1962, not peace between the two countries. And that is where, as you wisely pointed out, much of the tension arises from. We also, if you look into the future, there are some near-term catalysts that may arise that cause tension. It's unclear what the Dalai Lama's succession is going to look like. And that is something to China that is very, very sensitive. And of course, India also has significant interests in what happens there, given its close ties with Tibetans. And so I think that in the West, the long-term view is that it's very hard to see how China and India really do reconcile, despite what's been happening over the last week.
That's a very interesting perspective. Let me, throw it open for a wider discussion. General Shukla, how would you view the visit of the Prime Minister to China, his interactions with President Xi Jinping, and the point that India has reiterated cross-border terrorism in all its manifestations? That was an issue that India raised. And what does that mean when you raise this with China, when you talk about battling terrorism together in a situation where a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, Pakistan, is a part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, even though this organization was formed to combat terror, and Pakistan was involved in the Pahalgam terror attacks, and China was helping Pakistan?
So, I think fundamentally India has to reconcile to the fact that its rise will be undermined by competitors, adversaries, neighbors, partners, and even friends like the United States of America, which the Trump and MAGA camp has been doing for the last 3 to 4 months. I think the Trump administration has taken a strategic view of the world, which is that they do not see strategic or the need for strategic convergence on China. Therefore, India is no longer useful. In fact, the Americans have been trying to do a deal with China for a pretty long time. So, I mean, if there is a problem on the LAC, that's one issue. The problems with the Americans are no less. These public broadsides, doing public diplomacy. I'll give you one example. There was a problem which the Americans had with India buying oil from Iran, but it was settled through mature, closed-door conversations.
Yes.
You think you're going to bully a country like India, you are sadly mistaken. And while, there are still some people who are hopeful that we can pull the chestnuts out of the fire, I think at least as long as President Trump is here, we have reached the end of the road. And if that is the case, I mean, I've been a very, rosy-eyed advocate of Indo-US relations. But if this is the new reality, may I suggest to my Indian and American friends that let's look at alternate options. And in that sense, we've been talking of the power shift to Asia for so long. It has not found geostrategic expression. So there are options. There are options in the positive meeting between President Xi and Prime Minister Modi. Let me deal with this issue of LAC once and for all. Listen, we have balanced majorly to the north. We can take some host of technologies, and I'm confident we can produce what I call fail-proof deterrence along the LAC. This business of holding the larger Sino-Indian relationship with all the implications on trade, investment, commerce, EV sector, pharma, so on and so forth, cannot just go on. So we have to take our chances with China. But now that Trump and his friends are misbehaving so badly, do we have an option? And look at this. If this positive conversation with China also converges with this time-tested relationship with Russia, there could be new problems for our American friends in Eurasia. Now, I'm not saying it will happen over a day or two, but long term, you are
What an
forcing us to
interesting...
take a look.
Yes.
And this is not something of
What
our
an
own
interesting
volition.
perspective,
You
and
have been
let's
doing-
let's
you
dive
have been
deeper into this
dualling at our
conversation.
neck for the last 4 months.
Absolutely. Oh, that's such let's dive deeper into this, because I love your perspective, and let me bring in Dr. Tarakartha and Professor Shrikant Kondopalli one by one on this. Dr. Tarakartha, America is forcing India to find solutions with China, given the way Donald Trump has behaved, disregarding 25 years of investment in this relationship. And in this adversity, is this an opportunity? Should China come to the talks table with a clean hand? I mean, there's a big if in that, given the past track record, and who knows that better than all four of you on this panel. But Dr. Tarakartha, is this a new beginning, or is this too premature to look at it as perhaps, a new start or yet another false start?
No, I think the fact that the Prime Minister is there at all is a start. I mean, he's decided to go for the meeting, which means there's been a lot of prep work done. He wouldn't go unless he was aware that there is going to be some amount of delivery. But however, the downside is that if you look at the two statements which came out from the meeting, again it's the same thing that we say that the border settlement should come first and everything else follows. The Chinese say just the opposite. That remains. It's there in the statement. However, like I said, it's said there's some very, very interesting developments taking place where China is, I think, moving very swiftly as it always does. It is also, trying to get Pakistan, Afghanistan, all area. It sees itself as a stabilizing force for the region. But again, what you said is very correct. It sees itself as the big brother in Asia. It can act as a stabilizing force. Let's see if that works. As of now, I don't see any sign of it. But that is the way Wang Yi's visit went in Pakistan and Afghanistan when they had that trilateral. Everything you see now flows from that Wang Yi's visit, and of course the prior ones with Jaishankar, etc. But I'm a little skeptical because, like you said again, the trade gap is so huge. The trade gap with Russia, you've got nothing to export to Russia.
Yes.
So you have a problem here, and I would slightly disagree with General Raj Shukla. While the public noise is very large, and it is very, very bad, with Peter Navarro's threads constantly saying the most strangest things, but underneath there is still a lot of this thing going on. There's a lot of cooperation, and I know recently even your Intel cooperation was fantastic. So that's not over. And if you see Chinese chatter, that is what they're saying. They're saying India will never leave the US. That is not true. We have our choices. But that is, if you see the Chinese chatter on social media, that's what they're saying.
No, I've been watching it. In fact, I've been interacting with them. I've been interacting with several Chinese analysts here in Tianjin and in Beijing. It's a very interesting perspective that comes from them. So they're calling us fence sitters. They'll say, and they're actually telling us that, India will never take that hard decision in Asia's favor. However, Professor Kondapalli, when I asked them, yes, President Xi Jinping is talking about a multipolar world, but is he talking about a multipolar Asia where two Asian giants can peacefully coexist, which is India's civilizational philosophy? They may call it, the dragon and the elephant. I would like to see it as the dragon and the tiger, because India's economy and India's armed forces are roaring like the tiger, whether it's whatever happened at the LAC or Op Sindoor or, this fiscal growing at 7.8%. But you shed light on it, sir. You understand China so much better. Can the dragon and the tiger dance together, or is China trying to lead us up the garden path, as many in India argue, the Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai 2.0, 3.0 or 4.0? How would you see this, Professor Kodapalli? You've just been here also.
Thank you, Gaurav, for having me on the show. As far as this meeting goes, there is the optics between the two leaders. Second, the joint statement that is to be issued after the summit meeting of the SCO leaders, and largely the bilateral relations. So first, the optics. We have seen in the statements of both the leaders, they have mentioned about civilizational states, global south, rivals, not partners, not rivals, and other words that the leaders have used. Mutual respect, mutual trust, mutual sensitivity, and other statements. Now, in this background, we can say that there is still a kind of stalemate in the bilateral relations, but in a positive direction, not in negative, because they are talking to each other. So this is one broad observation that can be made out of this. Second, you will see in the joint statement no reflection of the Indian feelings on terrorism issue, on the CPEC, BRI related matters. Prime Minister Modi spoke in Qingdao meeting of the SCO before 2018, where he mentioned about the CPEC as violative of Indian sovereignty. So we will see a reiteration of this, which means that there is no progress in the bilateral relations because China is going ahead with the China-Pakistan economic cooperation, the corridor. So we will see this. In the long term, 2.0. The bilateral relations looks like going on a steady path with the post-Galwan as the background. In terms of what you mentioned, there is also the Indian statement, Prime Minister's statement, including multipolar Asia. That means that there is a concern, because China is focusing mainly on the global multipolarity, meaning essentially an anti-US position, while India is mentioning about multipolar world and a multipolar Asia. When you look at the Chinese position on water issues, it is unilateral. When you look at the other issues like maritime, global commons, there is a unilateral position. So there is no meeting ground in this regard in Asian region. So we will see some friction generated in the longer term.
So before I bring in Alexander Slater, once again, I want to bring in General Shukla on the aspect of border talks. While there is a mechanism that is being talked about between Wang Yi, who's a member of the Politburo, who's the foreign minister, special representative on boundary talks, and Ajit Doval, India's national security advisor, if there's reference to their meeting in Delhi and talking of a mechanism of confidence building measures and some talk of demarcation, do you see that as forward movement, or do you see that just as more words? Because we've had disengagement, we haven't had de-escalation. I don't even know if we'll ever have de-induction with both sides well entrenched all along the LAC. But your appreciation, sir?
Before I come to the China piece, Gaurav, I wanted to make just one comment on the Indo-US relationship. Even if this were just the tantrums of a maverick president, I would be okay with it. But there is greater layering. Last year, I heard Steve Bannon, who's at the heart of the MAGA advocacy, say that, this H-1B is a lie. It has been perpetuated on the Americans by American companies. The Indians are not talented. And lo behold, now you have Harvard Lutnick saying the same thing about revisiting H-1B. So it's not going to end with oil tariffs. It's going to go to people-to-people contacts, H-1B and so on. So therefore, my optimism on reviving the Indo-US relationship is rather low. See, insofar as China is concerned, we must realize now we are a big power. multipolarity in Asia will not be given to us on a platter. We'll have to contest it. We'll have to seek it, get it. And therefore now along the LAC, what happened in Galwan was when we had not balanced to the north, we were balanced to the west. Now that we have balanced to the north, the government should tell the Chief of Defense Staff that, listen, you have balanced adequately to the north, take these technologies and please assure us that deterrence will not fail.
Okay.
Because the larger Indo-Chinese relationship is simply too valuable for it to, ride on failures or on the LAC. They just have to end. And in that sense, it can be done if such a political diktat is given to the armed forces. And I'm not saying that the Chinese are, absolutely innocent. They must be trusted only after verification. And the 3Ds that you mentioned, they're all very good, but they all rest on the fourth larger D, which is deterrence. I mean, militaries respond to deterrence. Disengagement, so on and so forth are, diplomatic matters. And the last point I wish to make is that in the larger sense, of course, we have weaknesses. Unless we reverse these manufacturing dependencies, diversify trade, create some choke points. The Chinese have rare earths to handle with American misbehavior. What do you have? Mere pleadings don't do. So in the larger sense, we have to build these strategic choke points, deterrence, and we should never feel guilty because we were embracing America with such warmth. They are the guys who pushed us away. So there is no guilt here. And let me also tell you, we are also on a moral high.
Oh, absolutely.
And foreign policy also has a moral dimension. We are not somebody that you can
absolutely
with a finger get us to you.
Yes.
We are not Pakistan. We are a nation with self-pride. And it is with great regret that I say this, but I think the time has come now to look for options beyond America. Their misbehavior has been rather hurtful.
It indeed has been. And let me take that to Alexander Slater. America and India both invested more than quarter of a century in this relationship post 1999, and the manner in which Trump and the MAGA gang are behaving, it just shows a very crass behavior, Alexander Slater. I mean, as somebody who studies the subject, if America was talking about pivot to Asia, they were talking about Indo-Pacific, and suddenly from the White House to the Secretary of Defense, they're talking about Asia-Pacific and not Indo-Pacific. Is America furiously backpedaling? Are you looking at some kind of a G2 arrangement with China? And ultimately, would America end up benefiting China in the long run, which will ultimately challenge American supremacy in the world? So short-term gains, long-term losses for the America, Trump being penny-wise, pound-foolish.
Gaurav, I think the sentiment that General Shukla expresses is a reasonable one, the one of hurt feelings. I certainly think that the two countries, as you say, over the last half century have worked very hard to build trust after a history before that was one of great difficulty. And in particular, over the time that I was in India, the last 5 years, I think amazing strides were made between the two countries. We currently find ourselves in a cul-de-sac where the public expressions and, of course, the economic expressions have certainly dealt a setback to that trust. At the same time, I would say that the Trump administration does not trust China. That's clear. Whatever you want to say about what's been going on between India and the U.S. on trade, most of what the Trump administration has been doing through tariffs is geared towards preventing transshipment of goods to third countries from China. And this is one of the areas where I think India does have a vulnerability. Gaurav, you pointed out at the outset that there was a massive trade deficit between India and China. We see this in other contexts like Vietnam, Thailand, and these are things that give the United States some sense of transshipment of goods from China that are masquerading as goods from other countries. And I think whether or not it's accurate, it's what the administration sees. And they're adopting a policy to try and stop that. And that's where a lot of the tariffs are coming from. These are reciprocal tariffs. And some of the new tariffs that are coming down the pipe from Section 2 under a different authority. But ultimately, I don't think it's
why would any of these tariffs be aimed at India?
Yeah. So again, I think that there's lots
Why
going
would
on
any of
here.
these tariffs be aimed at India is something I just fail to understand. You know, you as strategic partners, if you think that to counter China, India is an effective power, and then suddenly the Trump administration throws India under the bus just because Donald Trump feels slighted that he wasn't recommended for a Nobel. I mean, that just sounds too bizarre to be true. But if it is true, I mean, it just goes on to indicate that perhaps India woke up in time, because this is truly, as many have argued in the past, and Pakistanis have warned us that, that Kissinger line, it's dangerous to be America's friend, it's, enemy, but fatal to be America's friend. And Pakistan has suffered, and now India would have been sailing in the same boat, but thank God for our Atmanirbhar policy. But Mr. Slater, give me a moment. Dr. Tara Kartha, you want to weigh in, are we being too harsh? Or are we just being very factual about the ground position? Yes, there's intelligence sharing. Yes, there's defense cooperation. But I'm not too enthused with the defense cooperation when the GE-404 engines have still not come for a light combat aircraft. I mean, they may blame these on some kind of delays that are happening with supply chains. It can't take 2 years for those engines not to come. And I'm surprised that we are still signing a deal worth $1 billion for additional GE-404 engines.
Yeah, that was actually quite surprising for me as well. But then I think it was inevitable, given that that whole deal was structured around those engines coming in later. But to answer your question, I think your point on this G2, I think we need to keep that in mind as a kind of side, as is this possible? However, the other extreme is the US is now ingressing into Central Asia. Okay, they just had the whole bunch over in Pakistan. Okay, they had the military chiefs over. Then they had a critical minerals meet with Central Asia. They are impinging into territory just next to China, next to us, and in Bangladesh. So it's what we are seeing now is, one is your Cold War is right on your doorstep. That is the second possibility. I don't rule out the G2, like you said, but I also see this on the ground. And the second part of it is that, I mean, like 25%, they put 25% tariffs on Kazakhstan. Okay, Kazakhstan is a prime, they call it the buckle in the Belt and the Road Initiative. They said you're the worst offenders, Kazakhstan. Worst offenders, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia. They bumped up all of these SCO countries are suffering through the same thing. So without the SCO in all these years, I used to think, what is SCO about? It's got nothing in common. Now perhaps they do, right? Because everybody is in the same boat. Third thing, however, is that China, like I again said, they are positioning themselves as this great stabilizer, and the US is doing just the opposite. They are splitting countries from one another. So this is a very dangerous game, and we are right in the middle. And that 25% extra tariffs, I think, is what broke the back. It's not so much the public diplomacy. I mean, public yelling. It's that, I mean, what? 25% more for what? You start the war, and then you tell us to end it. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that sentiment is very widespread across the country, even though people to people, India and America, they remain great partners. But I want to understand from you, Professor Shrikant Kodapalli, reset, of course, is a very strong word, but India, China, are there steps? Do we seek, we're seeking greater access to Chinese markets, but what is it that we can, to sell to the Chinese market? We've been trying for pharma, we haven't succeeded. Agriculture, we haven't succeeded. How does one move forward on that front? And if we do, is that an indication that China wants better ties with India, or is just optics, it's just words, and the nuclear suppliers group cooperation is still a very long way off?
Yes, I think many of these issues have not been discussed. The NSG, the Security Council membership, because China is the only P5 member which had not endorsed the Indian candidature in the Security Council. They did implicitly, but not so explicitly. There are other issues that China has not agreed to. So this is part of the pressure that China can exert, and seeking some kind of concessions from India, and India refusing to concede on many issues to China, and hence probably we'll see that stalemate continuing on those issues. But in terms of what India can sell to China, President Pratibha Patil, in her visit to China in 2010, 15 years ago, she mentioned 4 areas that could be both the countries can focus on. One is opening up the Chinese market, as you mentioned. Can pharmaceuticals, software, or other products can be sold to China or not? And China did agree, but they did not process some of those suggestions at that time. Secondly, President Patil mentioned about the Chinese investments in India, which stands today at about $8 billion for an economy of $18 trillion. So that is a main area. President Xi Jinping, during his visit to Delhi in September 2014, mentioned about $20 billion investment, but that has not really happened even
$20
after
billion,
11 years.
yes.
And thirdly, exploring third markets. That has also not happened in regard to both the. But the larger issue that I wanted to say was that during this meeting, the 50-minute meeting between the two leaders, there is no mention of the previous conditionalities that China imposed on India. For example, after 1962 border clashes in 76, when we normalized relations, China had mentioned three conditions. One, India should accept Taiwan as part of China, one China policy. Second, that Indian government should not say China is a threat. And thirdly, the Indian media, like the India Today, is skeptical of China, and so they need to be muzzled. On that last issue, the MEA told the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in China that this is beyond our control, and we cannot say anything about the Indian media because of the constitutional rights that the Indian media has. On the second issue, Indian government has not mentioned so far. The Ministry of Defense annual reports or the MEA annual reports doesn't mention China as a threat in explicit terms. They mention challenge, they use other words, but it is not mentioned. So overall, we have not, and after Wang Yi's visit to Delhi on 17-18, we have seen that the Indian side has given an explainer that there is no mention about Taiwan in the discussions, that India's position has not changed on Taiwan. So these three issues have not come about in the discussions between the two, which indicates that there is some progress actually, that they are not insisting on some conditionalities, and the bilateral relations are moving forward.
You know, I completely take the point that the stronger we are economically and militarily, the more respect we get as a nation, whether it's from the east or the west. What I am enthused by, and all of you can guide us better, is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan and the outcomes from that visit to Japan. Should it all fructify in terms of action on ground? But then within the country, the Prime Minister is facing tremendous criticism from the opposition, whether it's the principal opposition party, the Congress, or other India bloc alliance partners who say that after 20 soldiers made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in Galwan, India and China are moving forward, indicating as if nothing had happened. Is that actually true? Because the opposition continues to ask, given the number of times India has been stabbed in the back, can India trust China? I get you this report and we come back to our discussion with General Raj Shukla and all our other guests. Stay with me for a moment. Take a look at this report.
Prime Minister Modi's meeting with the Chinese president has signalled a possible restart in India-China ties. While PM Modi affirmed taking relations forward based on mutual trust, Xi Jinping emphasized that the dragon and the elephant must walk together.
The world is going towards transformation. China and India are two of the most civilizational countries. We are the world's two most populous countries and part of the global south. It is vital to be friends, a good neighbor, and the dragon and the elephant to come together.
The leaders recognize the long-standing border dispute between the two nations.
सीमा पर डिसएग्रीमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना दूंगा। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी।
However, with history serving key warnings, India will be skeptical about this olive branch coming with its own share of thorns. Despite sustained diplomatic dialogue and partial agreements to ease tensions, fundamental disputes between the two countries persist. Nearly 5 years after the Galwan clash, India and China continue to maintain troops along the line of actual control. In October last year, the two countries reached a partial understanding to ease the military standoff in Ladakh. But the border issue remains unresolved. China's growing military and diplomatic ties with Pakistan further strain trust. Merely months ago, during Operation Sindoor, Pakistan used China-made weapons against India. After the ongoing SCO summit, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will also attend a military parade being held in Beijing to commemorate the end of World War II in Asia. Beyond the battlefield, strategic concerns are mounting over China's mega dam threatening water flow into the Brahmaputra, which India sees as a hindrance to ecological security. Strategic alignment with China could shape up to be India's counter to the US after Trump's tariff tyranny. But with more than a few cautionary tales in this chapter of history, India will continue to question, can China be trusted? Bureau Report, India Today.
And that big question, can India trust China? And trust actually comes from a point of military strength. If India is strong, then nobody will misbehave with India. Economically strong, militarily strong. General Shukla, you know what happened in Galwan and the QPQ operations subsequently. Was that messaging enough? Or is there a lot more that needs to be done for India to know that, okay, we are secure along the LAC, now we can focus on other areas. Should there be misbehavior along the LAC, there will be consequences.
So, you know, Kailash was a good demonstration of the new normals in our strategic outlook. So that was a major step forward, but it is certainly not enough. You know, when the Prime Minister on Independence Day spoke of Sudarshan Chakra, I think it was the politician's instinct which was telling him,
yes,
India is faced with a range of threats. I mean, nobody can be trusted. If you trust the Americans, they demand a flat-free tax. If you trust the Chinese, they do stuff on the LAC. So why should we trust? We should trust in ourselves and create deterrence. So this is the time to reimagine our national security structures. A lot can be done, Gaurav. I can give you a range of measures, 60 to 70% of which have no budgetary costs. They are merely cultural. They are merely reformation. Now, when the Prime Minister talks of the Sudarshan Chakra, I think he's urging the civil, military, administrative, technological bureaucracies to create a defense citadel. AD, topology, long-range precision strike. If you do that, okay, China is not an illogical player. It will back off. But if you don't create deterrence, yes, and you have weaknesses, you will invite aggression from anybody and everybody. Why China? There is a lot to bother with Bangladesh. It's a new national security reality along the eastern horizons. So the short point is this, that India's rise we'll have to navigate our rise through multiple crises, conflicts and confrontations, as also skillfully find our way between this contested, in my view, retreating hegemon USA and the near hegemon China. Nobody is a saint, but we have to create our strength, and if we do so, I mean...
so we'll have to fight it out.
Yeah.
We'll have to fight and create our space. That's the thing, that's the point you're making. Retreating hegemon America. Alexander Slater, you agree with that description of the United States of America, and especially under Donald Trump, the manner in which the United States has behaved. In case India were to continue to take oil from Russia, if it benefits the Indian people, is the point that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made. Do we see this relationship at perhaps an all-time low, at least as long as Donald Trump is in the White House?
I don't think the relationship is at an all-time low. I think that discounts a lot of, again, positive people-to-people relationships, positive relationships between U.S. and American businesses, lots of Indian businesses, pardon me, U.S. and Indian businesses, lots of Indian businesses do business in the United States, lots of U.S. businesses do business in India. These are strong points to the relationship. The trade relationship between India and the United States dwarfs that of India and China. It's actually a relationship that's much better for India than the Chinese one. As you pointed out earlier, Gaurav, there's a massive trade deficit for India with China. With the United States, it has a big surplus, right? And I think that's part of the reason why we're in this situation between the U.S. and India under the Trump administration. And again, I would point to the fact that 25 years before, the 25 years before this, both Republican and Democratic administrations worked very hard with their counterparts in India to rebuild trust between the two countries and to expand the relationship. And one of the reasons why this current tension between the two countries is so painful is that so much was gained during that time, right? It's a different issue between China and India when Galwan happens. And what the Modi administration does is start kicking out Chinese businesses from India. And taking efforts to restrict their access to the Indian market because there's not that much at stake. And I think that sort of came up earlier in the conversation. I don't think that what's happening between India and the United States right now will be a long-term thing. I don't think it's going to endure, despite the fact that there are some voices in the Trump administration that, as you point out earlier, are quite strident. There are other voices that are confident in their expressions of the opportunity to resolve the differences between the two countries. And I think India very much wants that. Despite the fact that there is tension,
just 30 seconds, in your view, will President Trump come for the Quad Summit, or is the Quad Summit unlikely to happen this year?
I think it's too soon to tell. I do hope that President Trump does come to India for the Quad Summit. I think it would be an important sign. Again, the strategic relations between the two countries endure. I think everyone on this panel has talked about how intelligence sharing, military cooperation continues. And the larger Indo-Pacific interests of both countries are very much aligned, right? A peaceful, prosperous, and open Indo-Pacific is something that both countries value, and the main opponent to that, unequivocally, is China.
Okay. I hope Donald Trump is listening to you, and I hope Donald Trump does the right thing. So far, all that he's done in Trump 2.0 is do everything that's not good for at least India-US relationship on the trade and tariff front. But Dr. Tara Kartha, how would you view the two equations? Now, India had reached out for a thaw with China much before the Trump tariffs. But India-Japan, that's a relationship where I think there are many, many positive takeaways. Should all that investment in India happen? Should the skilled labor movement happen? Should that relationship actually move forward with the speed of the bullet train as is intended? So is that again a signal that the Prime Minister visited Japan, then came to China before coming back home?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a sort of dose of Chinese medicine to them that we went to Japan first. And you saw that statement on security cooperation. That is unprecedented. I mean, that kind of stuff. But however, I would like to caution on one thing. This is a very, very fast moving chess game, right? And the US, India, US, China, US, Japan, these are all separate relationships. You can't really put one for the other. They're different moves on the same chessboard. And I just want to, if I can take up just one issue, it's very easy to talk about deterrence against China. The deterrence is very difficult. It's not a conventional war. This is gray zone. This is salami slicing. It's cartographic aggression. How do you deter? To deter China, you need to have those same capabilities of working across the board in different levels of, what shall I say, of not confrontation, but of trying to get this relationship on a more equal scale. It's not just your troops. It's far, far more than that. How you play this game. And what you said exactly.
No, gray zone warfare, you're
absolutely.
Yes.
And you fact
the last 30 seconds, Professor Kondapalli, grey zone warfare that we talk about and the cartographic aggression, India can pay back in the same coin, instead of getting outraged. Whatever China does, if we were to do the same, Chinese sensitivities would be equally impacted. And would that deter China? Usually we've seen China respects only strength and nothing else.
In the case of China, the areas to deter them will be in terms of course, building up the conventional and nuclear deterrence capabilities of India. As you see, when Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in Delhi, we had the Agni 5 testing during coinciding his visit. Of course, these are planned well in advance, but there is the element of signaling that is mentioned. As you know, Agni 5 is more than 5,000 kilometers in radius. And obviously the signals are registered in China. The other areas is, of course, we need to maintain the growth rates at 7.8, as you mentioned, for the first quarter. And that builds up, a lot of capabilities like China has now in the infrastructure projects and in other areas. So I think that is a clear messaging that needs to be made on maintaining the growth rates. That's very important to bridge the asymmetry in power relations between the two sides. That's a very essential part.
I will let that be the last word on this part of the show. To all my guests, Alexander Slater, General Shukla, Dr. Tara Kartha and Professor Kundapalli, always such a treat to listen to you and benefit from your wisdom and knowledge. Many thanks for joining me. I've quoted Ramdhari Singh Dinkar many times from Shakti and Kshama because that is something that actually tells you what India's civilizational philosophy is, and that's something that Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram displayed on ground, where Ramdhari Singh Dinkar in Shakti and Kshama says, "Sach pucho to shar mein hi basti hai deepti vinay ki, sandhi vachan sampujya usi ka, jisme shakti vijay ki." Only the brave are respected. You're respected only when you have a bow and arrow and have the strength to use it. Only then, if you sue for peace, will people respect that peace. Thank you very much to all my guests for joining me. Now, China displayed its artificial intelligence capabilities, its robotic technology here at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. But, when you combine AI assessment, the robots and how they're working, I tried to move around at that camp, some of the immersive technology. It's very, very interesting. I leave you with some of these reports from Tianjin, China. Many thanks for watching. At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Media Center, SCO Summit Media Center here in Tianjin, the center of attraction truly is Xiaohe, a robot. The use of artificial intelligence and robot technology, something that China has been showcasing to the world. And you ask Xiaohe a question, she responds to your questions. She speaks as of now in 3 languages, English, Russian, and of course Chinese. So let me ask a question. Xiaohe, how are you?
I'm functioning optimally.
I'm functioning optimally. Thank you.
Currently operating at full capacity to assist you.
Okay,
so I'll be of service today.
So, Xiaohe, tell me what happened in the meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping.
As an AI assistant.
You can change another question.
Okay, so there are some questions in China that are not answered, not even by robots. So what can I ask you? Okay, how was the meeting? What do we expect from the SCO summit?
The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit serves as an important platform for member states to discuss regional cooperation, security, and economic development. While specific meeting details aren't publicly available until officially released,
Okay.
you can expect discussions on enhancing multilateral cooperation,
Fair enough.
regional challenges, and promoting economic initiatives among member nations.
So, how are India-China relations moving forward? Silence, stunned silence. And perhaps when you talk about artificial intelligence, because a lot depends on what's fed into the system and what comes out of the system. But if I say Ilu Pingan, what does Ilu Pingan mean?
The term "looping doesn't appear to be a standard technical or common phrase in English.
Okay, so that.
It's a typo, abbreviation.
Okay,
or
so.
specialized term from a specific context.
Thank you very much. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, the robot, very interesting. Some of the answers in China, the questions are best not asked. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China, for India Today.
You are watching India Today.
मंगलदीप, दिल से करो बात भगवान के साथ। मंगलदीप धूप कोन्स 2 गुनी खुशबू के साथ दे पूजा का बेहतर अनुभव। मंगलदीप, दिल से करो बात भगवान के साथ। मंगलदीप धूप कोन्स 2 गुनी खुशबू के साथ दे पूजा का बेहतर अनुभव।
आरक्षण सरकार का जिम्मेदारी है, देखता है कैसे उसको जिम्मेदारी लोग पास पहुंचाता है, उसको जिम्मेदारी है, वेट करना है क्या, कैसे नहीं पहुंचेगा तो जनता ही नहीं उसको गाड़ फेंकेगा।
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Hi, here are the top headlines. Presented by Motorola. PM Modi raises terrorism issue in talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Indian NGO for Girls' Education wins 2025 Raymond Magsaysay Award ED raids Odisha mining tycoon in a rupees 1396 crore bank fraud case.
So sorry.
are watching India Today.
Good evening and welcome to India Today. I'm Anjali Istawal. Let's take a look at the top headlines of the day. Historic PM Modi-Xi Jinping handshake and bilateral in Tianjin, China. Prime Minister Modi hails India-China ties, says determined to take India-China relationship forward. Chinese President Xi Jinping thanks Prime Minister Modi at bilateral, says vital for dragon and elephant to come together. Also says successful meet in Kazan earlier restarted India-China ties. Prime Minister Narendra Modi attends SCO summit official reception, welcomed by Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife. The SCO family also clicked a photograph together before the reception began. Big anti-terror global outreach in China by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. MEA says Prime Minister Modi raised the issue of terrorism with China and urged to jointly fight problem of terrorism. China assures cooperation. Now all eyes on Modi-Putin bilateral meet on Monday. Meet comes amid Trump tariff on India over purchase of Russian oil. On Saturday, Prime Minister spoke to Zelensky and pushed for peace and tranquility. Sources reveal what White House has urged European Union to mirror US sanctions, pushing for secondary tariffs on India and China. Reports say that Trump may skip Quad in India. In a meeting watched closely across the globe, Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping held talks in Tianjin, signaling a possible restart in India-China ties as both sides called for trust, peace and partnership. The Chinese president and his wife also received the Prime Minister for the SCO summit official reception. More about this in our next report.
The dragon and the elephant must come together. That was the message from Chinese President Xi Jinping to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a high-stakes bilateral on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin. Xi recalled last year's Kazan meeting as the turning point, the reset moment for China-India ties. Now, with diplomacy gaining ground, he urged both nations, two ancient civilizations, two population giants, two pillars of the global south to rise above rivalry and embrace partnership. Xi called for strategic vision, not short-term suspicion, mutual trust, not threats. And yes, a dancing of the dragon and the elephant as the right path forward.
It is a great pleasure to meet you again, Mr. Prime Minister. I welcome you to China for the SCO summit. Last year, we had a successful meeting in Kazan. The world is going towards transformation. China and India are two of the most civilizational countries. We are the world's two most populous countries and part of the global south. It is vital to be friends, a good neighbor, and the dragon and the elephant to come together.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed that India-China ties are back on a positive track. He pointed to concrete signs, a peaceful border, resumption of direct flights and Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and a renewed commitment to cooperation. Prime Minister Modi stressed that India and China are not adversaries but partners in progress.
सीमा पर डिसएंगेजमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की।
Even Chinese media is calling this meeting a potential breakthrough, a turning point in India-China ties.
हम बहुत खुशी से ये देख रहे हैं जिन भारत हम दोनों दो पड़ोसी देश है ना हम तो इस दुनिया के सबसे बड़े विकासशील देश भी है और इस दुनिया के तो उभरती अर्थव्यवस्थाएं भी है तो अगर हम दोनों एक साथ हाथ मिलकर काम करते हैं तो जरूर बहुत सबसे मजबूती शक्ति होगी.
As the world watches a shifting global order, both leaders agreed this relationship must be driven by long-term purpose, not border headlines. Could Tianjin be the breakthrough?
There is gradual incremental progress in the relationship, but it can move forward only and only if and when there is peace and tranquility that's maintained along the line of actual control. Will it mean restoration of status quo ante before the Galwan operations is something that we need to keep an eye on. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China for India Today.
Now let's take a look at what were the key takeaways of Modi and Xi Jinping meeting. Well, India flagged the trade deficit and it flagged it as a strategic concern. It is a huge deficit. India imports from China more than it exports, and that needs to be taken care of. Well, talks on border mechanisms are expected to continue soon. They've been ongoing for a while, but now more focus will be placed on the special representative talks. Now, PM Modi also stressed peace as a precondition for any ties, which was clearly stated by India that peace on the borders is extremely important for anything to move forward. Cross-border terrorism was raised and also joint action was reaffirmed. China gave its confirmation that it will help India and support India's action as far as cross-border terrorism is concerned. Now, very importantly, direct flights that were earlier suspended in 2020, they are likely to resume soon. This is going to be a huge relief for many, especially as far as people-to-people ties are concerned. Global issues were also discussed in this bilateral meeting, but the focus truly stayed bilateral, which is that the issues which are connected to India and China, they were the main issues that were in focus. Now, leaders outlined a roadmap for normalization. We have seen skirmishes and tensions along the border, but the leaders are now talking about normalization, which is a huge relief. Now, the Prime Minister called for Chinese support against terrorism. This we spoke about, and also the fact that cross-border terrorism, importantly in terrorism, was also flagged, but as such, China's support in UN Security Council as well, as far as terrorism that needs to be flagged is concerned, is also sought. Now, Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping shared views on UN and WTO reforms. They want more inclusivity as far as these reforms are concerned, and that is what expected, that India and China are going to push together. So even as this meeting has grabbed all the eyeballs, the question that everyone is raising, is China to be trusted once again? Let's take a look at this report.
Prime Minister Modi's meeting with the Chinese president has signalled a possible restart in India-China ties. While PM Modi affirmed taking relations forward based on mutual trust, Xi Jinping emphasized that the dragon and the elephant must walk together.
The world is going towards transformation. China and India are two of the most civilizational countries. We are the world's two most populous countries and part of the global south. It is vital to be friends, a good neighbor, and the dragon and the elephant to come together.
The leaders recognize the long-standing border dispute between the two nations.
सीमा पर डिसएग्रीमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी।
However, with history serving key warnings, India will be skeptical about this olive branch coming with its own share of thorns. Despite sustained diplomatic dialogue and partial agreements to ease tensions, fundamental disputes between the two countries persist. Nearly 5 years after the Galwan clash, India and China continue to maintain troops along the line of actual control. In October last year, the two countries reached a partial understanding to ease the military standoff in Ladakh. But the border issue remains unresolved. China's growing military and diplomatic ties with Pakistan further strain trust. Merely months ago, during Operation Sindoor, Pakistan used China-made weapons against India. After the ongoing SCO summit, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will also attend a military parade being held in Beijing to commemorate the end of World War II in Asia. Beyond the battlefield, strategic concerns are mounting over China's mega dam threatening water flow into the Brahmaputra, which India sees as a hindrance to ecological security. Strategic alignment with China could shape up to be India's counter to the US after Trump's tariff tyranny. But with more than a few cautionary tales in this chapter of history, India will continue to question, can China be trusted? Bureau Report, India Today.
After India-China, now there is going to be focus on Russia-India-China triangle, or what we call as RICS. Now, this was envisioned in 1990s to challenge US dominance. And once again, we are standing at the same spot. We have to challenge US dominance. Now, once again, there is a resumption of this because this is now happening under Russia's watch, which is bringing together India, which is a longtime ally, and friend China together. Now, what would be the benefit for each country? Now, this could offer Russia a strategic relief in terms of the fact that it's war-tired, it has no allies for a very long time, and it's viewed by the Western countries as a pariah, but it could give it a relief. It is also going to help China to expand its market into India. India could leverage it as well. It could use this opportunity to undermine US influence, which is currently putting tariffs on India and curtailing markets for it. After the high-profile Modi-Xi meeting in Tianjin, all eyes are now on Modi and Russian President Vladimir Putin. With the potential to change global alignments and regional power equations, this meeting signals more than just diplomatic protocol. Here's a news report.
The high-stakes SCO summit in Tianjin is underway. India, China and Russia troika is making global headlines. The meeting is expected to shape the trajectory of regional diplomacy and global alliances. All eyes are now on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Amid Trump's tariff blows, India and Russia are charting new directions for cooperation in a changing global order. The crucial meeting between Modi and Putin comes as Trump imposed steep tariffs on Indian goods as punishment for continued purchase of Russian oil. The discussions are expected to focus on deepening India-Russia cooperation in trade and defense, addressing US pressure. At this juncture, India is also exploring greater involvement in Russia's Arctic energy projects and fast-tracking the North-South transport corridor, which can become India's gateway to Europe. As global alliances shift, the Modi-Putin equation remains the one to watch. With Gaurav Sawant, Bureau Report, India Today.
China's tech is world famous, and China took this opportunity to display it in front of all its SCO partners. My colleague Gaurav Sawant explored the tech from intelligent robots to packaging workhorse robots and immersive experience tech.
At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Media Center, SCO Summit Media Center here in Tianjin, the center of attraction truly is Xiaohe, a robot. The use of artificial intelligence and robot technology, something that China has been showcasing to the world. And you ask Xiaohe a question, she responds to your questions. She speaks as of now in 3 languages, English, Russian, and of course Chinese. So let me ask a question. Xiaohe, how are you?
I'm functioning optimally.
I'm functioning optimally, thank you.
Currently operating at full capacity to assist you.
Okay,
How may I be of service today?
So Xiaohe, tell me what happened in the meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping.
As an AI assistant.
You can change another question.
Okay, so there are some questions in China that are not answered, not even by robots. So what can I ask you? Okay, how was the meeting? What do we expect from the SCO summit?
The Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit serves as an important platform for member states to discuss regional cooperation, security, and economic development. While specific meeting details aren't publicly available until officially released,
okay,
you can expect discussions on enhancing multilateral cooperation.
Fair enough.
Regional challenges and promoting economic initiatives among member nations.
So, how are India-China relations moving forward? silence, stunned silence. And perhaps when you talk about artificial intelligence, because a lot depends on what's fed into the system and what comes out of the system. But if I say Ilu Pingan, what does Ilu Pingan mean?
The term "ilupingan" doesn't appear to be a standard technical or common phrase in English.
Okay, so that...
A typo, abbreviation.
Okay, so... Thank you very much. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, the robot, very interesting. Some of the answers in China, the questions are best not asked. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China, for India Today. At the Cooperation Organization right here at the Media Center, the effort is to show Chinese technology. And come closer, let me show you what these robots are all about. These are packets, and this robot makes that distinction which packet has to go there. With me is Mia or Molame. Mia, hi. What can you tell us? What does this robot do?
This robot is from Tianjin Business Company's humanoid robot. Its name is Tora 1. And its major function is, as you see, it can just pick the package and categorize them, just put them into different source categories based on their colors. And as you can see over the baskets over there, it have black packages with the black ones and the white with the white ones. Yeah.
So this is just one of the many technologies on display. So watch this. It has the camera there. It notices the package. It has fingers that makes the distinction and drops it in different categories depending on the color of the package. They can also make that distinction according to weight. So automation is the key that they're trying to show. What is also very interesting, and come closer, let me try and show you this. This is a drone recharger, and it's all about size, scale, and scale. How many drones? This is a drone charger, am I right?
Yes. It's not only just a drone charger. It can just, just let the drone up and just put it down and some of that. So it's, yeah.
So it's automation. In the civil, it has a role. In military, it can have a role. What role does it have? So this is a machine that not only charges the drone, it can replace a faulty part, and it can launch a drone. And apparently more than 50 drones, one after the other, it has the capability of recharging, repairing and launching. The number of drones it can repair and launch.
The number of drones is, this one I need to ask my technician right now. Yeah.
Perfect. So when I was speaking to one of the technicians, they were telling me about the size, scale and speed with which these robotic arms, they work. And just imagine, so this drone has a camera here. It's a quadcopter. It can be used for surveillance. It can also, in a different context, have other uses. So this is where their technology comes. Another piece of equipment that is on display here is something that would ultimately replace a human. This is a charger, a battery charger in an electronic vehicle. What does it do? So you bring your car, you don't even have to spend time in putting the charger. This arm does it on its own, a robotic arm. So this is how China is displaying some of these robots, and these youngsters are explaining this. Now, what is their effort? The effort is to show the size, the scale at which all these technologies are coming into China, also artificial intelligence. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China, for India Today. This is the next generation of technology. This is an immersive technology experience. So watch this screen and watch this equipment around me. This gives you a sense of what's happening around. So the next time you watch a movie, it may just be like this in a giant movie theater, where the theater is also on the floor. This will show you the entire experience of the movie that you're watching. And it's not just sight, it's also the smell. So every sensory power is being used here. So for example, if there's a fragrant tree or there are flowers, there'll be a fragrance of trees and flowers just behind. You see the trees there and you smell that fragrance here. That's the experience. And let me show it to you how this immersive technology works. So you have, like in a movie theater, chairs like this. So I'm sitting here and watching this movie. Now, when I watch these images, it's all over. I get a sense of height here. I can see the birds, they're flying around me and then they soar and it's all around me, this immersive experience. Watch this. It's as if these images transport you there. From artificial intelligence to the sensory power, all of that is being utilized here, and this is what China is showcasing. With me is a volunteer here at this stall in Changling. You explain to me what this experience is.
You mean this video? We have two video, and this one is means the wings of peace, shared destiny, and we can see this have many different SCO members country, and there are very famous landscapes in here. And here you can see the 3D effects. Yes, it's very directly to feel the you can seeing and you can smelling, touching, all this in one. Yes.
So it's the use of all your senses and sensory power. It's not just see it, you can also smell it and touch it. It almost feels as if you're soaring like the people there. That's Kremlin, Moscow in winters. Does that make you feel cold? Well, that's the impression. Of course, the air conditioning here hasn't come on to make you feel cold or to feel that there is a whale right behind you. But I am told their effort is that next time you see a horse, you can smell the horse. When you see a whale and there's a splash of water, there'll be a splash of water on your face. So that is how immersive they intend to make this technology. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China, for India Today.
There is no end to Trump's bullying. In another escalation of tariff wars with India, now US President Donald Trump is likely to miss the Quad summit in India. After imposing a 50% tariff on India, sources reveal that the White House has urged the European Union to mirror US sanctions and pushing for secondary tariffs on India and China. India Today has also learned that Washington wants a halt on Russian oil purchases. This, while it accuses the EU of pressuring Ukraine into territorial concessions, claiming Europe's stance is prolonging the war in Ukraine. Earlier, a former White House official sharply criticized Donald Trump's tariffs on India, accusing him of damaging the American brand globally. Former NSA Jake Sullivan stated that the American brand is now in the toilet and that Trump's tariffs have pushed New Delhi closer to China. Earlier, a federal appeals court said that most tariffs are illegal and ruled that US president had no legal right to impose sweeping tariffs on nearly every country. However, Donald Trump called the ruling highly partisan and claimed that it can destroy the US.
China has moved ahead of the United States in popularity in a whole lot of countries. And that was not the case 1 year ago, where countries now are basically, saying the US brand is in the toilet and China's looking like, actually, in a bizarre way, a more responsible player. So that's one of the big things that I hear from my friends who continue to work in these governments in Europe, in Asia. Take a look at India as another example. I mean, here's a country that on a bipartisan basis, we were working to try to build a deeper and more sustainable relationship with. And the China challenge loomed large in that. Now.
And with that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. Thank you for watching India Today. For more news and updates, you can log on to indiatoday.in. You can also download the app. It's time for a short break now. Stay tuned.
You are watching India Today.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Hi, here are the top headlines. Presented by Motorola. PM Modi raises terrorism issue in talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Indian NGO for Girls' Education wins 2025 Raymond Magsaysay Award. ED raids Odisha mining tycoon in a rupees 1396 crore bank fraud case.
Unrivaled, unmatched, unequaled, unchallenged, unassailable, undisputed, unpolitics. 7 weeks, number one. Only on India Today.
You are watching India Today.
Never again. When you hear the word never again, the context usually that you and I would think of is 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks. Never again will we let Pakistani state-sponsored radical Islamist terror bleed our country. But then we have been bled for a very, very long time. And on the Chakraview podcast today, explaining why he's wearing that never again t-shirt and the context is a very special guest. I want to welcome on the Chakraview podcast Vivek Ranjan Agnihotri. Sir, welcome, the director and writer of the Bengal Files and the Tashkent Files. You're very close on the trilogy of files that you've done. But sir, before we dive into that conversation, welcome to the Chakraview podcast. Explain this t-shirt, never again.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you very much. So this idea of never again, actually there is a lot of background to this. Okay, let me just give the context to this. When we were researching the Kashmir files, I am a very socio-politically aware person. I am son of freedom fighters. I have studied politics. But still I didn't know one thing, which is that in the history of humanity, the most persecuted and most enslaved society is Hindu society. For 1200 years, we were persecuted and enslaved continuously. और जो ये कम्युनिस्ट हिंदी में भी बीच में बोल सकता हूँ
बिल्कुल सर
तो ये जो पूरा का पूरा जो वेस्टर्न आइडिया है वो है ऑप्रेसर और ऑप्रेस्ड का दे बिलीव दैट मेजॉरिटी इज द ऑप्रेसर एंड माइनॉरिटी इज ऑलवेज द ऑप्रेस्ड कश्मीर को इसीलिए दे परसीव दैट कश्मीर में हिंदूज आर द मेजॉरिटी तो वही लोग ऑप्रेस कर रहे हैं बट इंडिया इज अ वेरी यूनिक कंट्री इन दिस कंट्री माइनॉरिटीज हैव ऑप्रेस्ड द मेजॉरिटी फॉर 1200 ईयर्स वरना यू टेल मी हजारों औरतें आग में क्यों कूदेंगी
जौहर क्यों
करेंगी सती प्रथा क्यों आई घूंघट कहाँ से आया राइट इन्हीं सब कारणों से आया यही कारण है कि एक जनरेशनल कलेक्टिव कॉन्शियसनेस हमारी ऐसी बन गई है हमारी मसल मेमोरी ऐसी हो गई है कि भारत का हर आदमी थोड़ा सा झुक के चलता है आप नोटिस करिए, हमेशा बोलता है मालिक, माई बाप, बड़े लोग, साहब, किसी से भी बात करो कहेगा साहब, बड़े लोग। ये क्योंकि हम डर गए कहीं पे, एक डरी हुई सोसाइटी हमारी बन गई। बट द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट नो यंग पर्सन, इवन मिडिल एज और ओल्ड पीपल, they don't know that we are the most persecuted and enslaved society in the world. आप पूछो सबसे अधिक स्लेवरी किसने की, हर आदमी आपको इंडिया में जवाब देगा ब्लैक्स।
अफ्रीका में मतलब
हाँ,
वहीं पर नजर जाएगी।
ब्लैक्स के बारे में बात करेंगे। आप पूछो सबसे अधिक किसका परसिक्यूशन हुआ, लोग बोलेंगे ज्यूज का हुआ। 1200 साल हमारा हुआ है। आप चैट जीपीटी में चेक कर लो, गूगल तो मैं बिलीव नहीं करता इतना, लेकिन हमें पता नहीं है ये बात। सो देन आई सेड, कैन यू एवर फाइंड अ Jew child who doesn't know about the Holocaust? Can you find a black boy or a girl who doesn't know about slavery? Can you ever find a Japanese child who doesn't know about the bombing of Hiroshima, Nagasaki? Or a Rwandan child who doesn't know about Rwandan genocide? Or an Armenian child who doesn't know about Armenian genocide? Then how come we don't know about this? And फिर मैं जब रिसर्च कर रहा था तो कलकत्ता में मुझे वो बोर्ड्स मिले, पुराने प्लाक्स, एंटीक, जो वहाँ क्लब्स, रेस्टोरेंट्स, दुकानों में लिखे रहते थे, डॉग्स एंड इंडियंस नॉट अलाउड।
ये तो हमने पढ़ा है अपनी
इतिहास की पुस्तकों में। और किसी ने ये नहीं सोचा कि डॉग्स भी उस हायरार्की में ऊपर है, इंडियंस बाद में। डॉग्स एंड इंडियंस